Hello and welcome to VB Music Jazz Ed videos. Today's video is about the chord movement known in harmonic terminology as 1 major 7 to 4 major 7. A concrete example would be found in the cadence C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7 as found in Autumn Leaves measures 1 through 4. And there you have it. If you look specifically at measures 3 and 4, then you will see the B flat major 7 to the E flat major 7. Now just a quick word about terminology. In case you're not familiar with harmonic terminology, that's not a problem because in the end all terminology does is classify events which are occurring often, chord movements, cadences, things like that, and classifies them according to the degree of the scale or within the key that they are found. And the purpose of all this is to make it easier to recognize similar chord movements and similar cadences when they occur in other songs which you haven't yet seen. So by getting used to these different, you might call them patterns, or these different, a better word would be fundamental chord movements that you find in virtually all the tunes of the standard repertoire. You don't find every single movement, but you find the general most often used movements all the time. So that's the purpose of classification and terminology. So hopefully as we look at some of these other examples, it will become clearer as we go along. Now C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat 7, I should say E flat major 7, is 2 minor 7, 5, 7, 1 major 7, and 4 major 7 in the key of B flat. And in this particular song, the key of B flat is the relative major to the key of G minor, which is the key for Autumn Leaves, because it ends on G minor. Now, why did I pick this particular theme for today's video? Because moving to the 4th degree major 7 can be problematic when improvising. At least I know from my own experience when I first began, I was so concentrating on chord roots that when the movement came to go to the 4th major 7, I automatically concentrated on playing, emphasizing or focusing on the root of the chord. Now, I might have played something like this, for instance. I'm taking now from the whole cadence from B flat, from C minor 7, F7 to B flat 7, B flat major 7 to E flat major 7. For instance, I might have played something like landing on this E flat in on a strong beat, and I wasn't satisfied with that. It was almost as if I was forced every time to go down to the root of the chord because I didn't know anything else I could do or anything else I could play. So that's what the main thrust of this video is going to be. What can we do on that chord without having to always automatically, as a knee-jerk reaction, so to speak, go to the chord root? So to enable us to do that, we need 2 points to consider. The first point is, what is the real role or function of 4 major 7 within the harmonic scheme of things? And the second point is using scale modes for melodic inspiration. Now briefly, scale modes are the notes of a given scale beginning on different degrees. For instance, the B flat major, but But if I begin on C, begin on D, that's a mode, etc., etc. And they all have names, which I'm not going to go into right now because those names can be a little bit too not only confusing, but they tend to obscure how each of these modes sound over a chord. Okay, let's look at point 1. What is the true functional role of 4 major 7? Well, 4 major 7 in fact can be looked at as nothing more than a substitute for 1/6. In other words, normally speaking, in a fully extended cadence of 2-5-1, we traditionally play the 2, C minor 7, F7, I'm going to add a flat 9 here, B flat major 7, and then we go to the B flat 6. That's called a point of rest. In other words, there's a certain calm. We say a fully developed cadence is 2-5-1, which means 1 major 7, 1/6 in the major key. Now there's a similar thing in the minor key as well. Now if we take a simple voicing of that, we see here, now when we go to B flat major 7, we're going to add a 9th, which is like the 2nd degree of the chord of B flat. It's like adding a C, so that instead of sounding like this, it sounds like this. The sound is a bit more pleasant, it's not quite as harsh. And we do the same thing when we go to E flat major 7. We add the 9, which is the F. So instead of doing just this, we do this. Now that gives us in effect a B flat 6. I notice that the 6 is missing from the chord symbol. However, you see that, right? B flat 6. So what we have really is B flat 6 with another note in the bass. So this bass note takes the point of rest, which we normally would have, and adds some tension to it to make us expect something to follow it. And of course we know what follows it. What follows it is A minor 7 flat 5. To D 7 flat 9, to G minor, major 7 if you like, G minor 6. So the whole thing, first 8 measures of Autumn Leaves are going to be Now remember, the voicings I'm using here are the traditional voicings in 2 hands. The left hand, there are 2 forms. There's the form in the left hand 1-7, and in the right hand 3-5, and perhaps something else, whatever happens to be extra there. And it moves to 1-3 and 7, and then perhaps 9 or flat 9 or whatever else is coming. So you have these 2 forms. You have the 1-7-3 form. 3 up here is like a 10th if you want. And we have the 1-3-7. It's the opposite. These are the fundamental voicings every piano player should know for several reasons. First of all, they sound good. And secondly, they enable you to be able to arrange tunes just for piano in a full sounding, rich harmonic way, instead of having to rely just on close voicing like this. So all the examples I'm going to be giving are going to be using these fundamental voicings. Now if we say that 4 major 7 is a substitute for 1-6 with another bass note, what can we conclude from that? Well, we can conclude that what we would have played, what we would have improvised over 1 major 7, 1-6, we can also improvise over 1 major 7, 4 major 7, because all that's different is the bass note. For instance, if I would have played that was 1 major 7, 1 6. I could do the same thing, 1 major 7, 4 major 7. So that makes things much, much easier. And we're avoiding, in every case, we're avoiding focusing on the root of the major 7, whether it be the 1 major 7 or the 4 major 7. It's a phenomenon we call chord root focus. We want to avoid that in the major 7s especially. So how can we get into this aspect a little bit more? We do that by looking at the scale modes. Looking at, for instance, in this particular case, B flat major scale. We want to play something more like and you see here, what's happening here? The B flat, it's always the chord root, but in my melody, it doesn't have that role. Now it's a passing note between A and C. And this is taking by concentrating on the 5th degree of the B flat major scale. Now if you'd be in a theory class, they would tell you, oh, that's the mode, or that's the one that you play for F7. That's true, basically speaking. But what they're not telling you many times is that's also the mode of the scale mode that you can play for something melodic over the 1 chord. Joy Spring, right? Many, many melodies begin on the 5th and they focus around the 5th. So that means if I can do that on the 1 major 7, on the basis of what we have been saying, I can also do it on the 4 major 7. So something else, let's see. Okay, now let's look at a few of these other examples so that we get used to recognizing this movement when we see it or when we when we encounter it. Now, Are You Real? Composition by Benny Golson. Check this out. You will see that it's basically the same, almost identical, same 8 measures as in Autumn Leaves. Then he goes to C7. But basically, he goes to G minor, just like in Autumn Leaves. So there you have it. Now, if you know that this is measures 3 and 4, you see with the red line above, which highlights the measures which we're talking about. You will see that you will say, that's right. The first 8 measures of this song are basically the same as they were in Autumn Leaves. And that's, once you start doing that, you're helping yourself a great deal, because you're starting to recognize repeating chord movements. I don't like the word patterns. Chord movements, which are basic to our 12-tone system. System is not a good word either. Let's say our 12-tone harmony. So that's that example. Then we also have, Here's That Rainy Day, key of G. Now in this case, we're going to what we call a temporary one. In other words, B flat 7 is going to resolve to E flat major 7. So E flat major 7 is known as a temporary one. In other words, it's a moment in another key for a while, or for a couple of measures, or however long it is. The key of the piece is G, but we temporarily, if you wish, modulate to E flat major 7. And we do that through B flat 7, which is dominant. What we don't have in this example is the F minor 7, which often precedes the dominant, or the 2 minor 7, but that doesn't matter, because the function, what's happening here is exactly the same thing that's happening in Autumn Leaves and in Are You Real? Afterwards, for E flat major 7, what happens? A flat major 7. What is A flat major 7 with respect to E flat major 7? It's the 4th degree. Exactly the same thing as we've just seen. Alright, so I'm going to play something on here. Now I have to be able to move from the G major 7 to the B flat 7. In this case, this is something, of course, for a whole other video, but just to mention it because it's come up. We need to know how to shift to compare the scales when we have a difference in chord, which implies a difference in scale. G major is this. Now we know B flat 7 is the E flat major scale. G is a note which is shared in both of those. So let's take the B flat 7 or the E flat major 7 scale from G. So we're moving from G major to E flat, beginning with G. So we have several notes which are shared. The C is shared and the G. The D is shared as well between G major and E flat major. So the melody says, of course here we have a triad in our melody, but we could do So here I've made a little phrase. When I get to the next measure, measure 2, I come down, making the necessary changes in the scale. And once again, I'm staying on the scale of my 1 chord when I go to the 4. In other words, when I go to A flat major 7, I'm still playing basically the E flat major scale, and I'm not focusing on any of those chord roots. That E flat is a passing note between F and D. Here we have exactly the same case again. Measure 9. Two, 5, 1, again in the key of B flat, what we just saw in Autumn Leaves and Are You Real, going to B flat major 7, E flat major 7. So in this song we have 2 cases of this. Now we have Black Orpheus. Black Orpheus, a composition from the movie of the same name, Orfeo Negro, composed by Antonio Scala Jobim and Luis Bonfa. There we have it. Now that's measures 11 and 12. The second phrase begins here. Measure 9. 10, 11, through into 12. Same situation. The C major 7 to the F major 7. So we have 2, 5, 1 in the key of C, which is the relative major to A minor. And then it moves to F major 7, which is the 4th degree up from the C major 7. Same thing again. I'm going to stay with the C major 7 scale when I play F major 7. I'm not going to concentrate on F, so I might do this. So now you recognize, as we move, sometimes this particular location of this chord movement is different. That's one of the wonderful things about the harmonic system, is that, you know, as people compose songs, and these same movements we find in different places in different songs. But we also find them in the same places in different songs, depending. The most important thing is to be able to recognize these when you encounter them. So as a final example, I've chosen How Insensitive. Now this is in the key of D minor. The B flat major 7 comes here, and then it moves to an E flat major 7. What's interesting here is that it's preceded by a G7 with a B in the bass. But before that, we have a C minor 6. The C minor 6 is functioning like an F7. For instance, we could have done, with less harmonic interest, we could have said, but you see, he's delayed this. This is one of the ingenious things about Jobim. He incorporates a lot of delay, harmonic resolution delay. He does. Now you're expecting something else, but he does this. Then only. Now this is the B flat, which normally would have come, theoretically speaking, earlier. Now I'm not trying to diminish the importance of what he's done here, but I'm only trying to point out that that C minor 6 normally, sooner or later, would have gone to a B flat major 7. Of course, it goes to the 6 because the 6 is in the melody. And remember, that's another thing which is fundamental, is that we don't, when we have a 6 in the melody, we play a 6 chord. That's generally how it is. However, in improvisation, we would play the major 7, no doubt, and have fun doing it. Then comes the E flat major 7. So B flat is actually a temporary 1 in the key of D minor, which is on the 6th degree, and then it goes to the 4th. Okay, so let's say we would be playing something on this. So let's take it from the top. Again, I played over B flat major 7, same scale over E flat major 7. And the G7 with the B in the bass. Now here's a question: what can you improvise, or how can you approach, or how can you know the best way to approach this particular movement of G7 to B flat major 7? Now he's put a B in the bass to create a bass movement. Well, again, we compare our scales. The B flat major is a temporary 1. That means we're going to be in the B flat scale there. G7 is like the C scale. So what are the differences in the notes? We have many common notes between B flat major and C, right? We're going to center them around, let's say, so the G7 scale, or the C major scale from G, and the B flat major scale from G. So for improvising from the beginning again, Look at all the notes I can share, huh? So we've seen several examples of this. So what can we conclude? So to finish up, a 4 major 7 can be treated like a 1 major 6 with another note in the bass a fourth higher. You can play over the 4 major 7 what you might have played over the 1 6. So basically it makes things much easier. The second point is to avoid concentrating on the roots of the major 7 chord in your phrasing. In other words, avoid what we call chord root focus and use some of the scale modes to discover some other feeling or some other source of melody over those chords. The 5th degree of the scale is probably the strongest place to start. And then we've seen a couple of other points where these are modulations where we've seen, you know, this G, we just seen this G chord with a B bass and going to B flat major. Anytime you have something like that, what you do is you compare the scales between two chords that seem to be changing radically and try to find the notes that are shared within those two chords, within the scales of those two chords. And try to play the scale, play each scale from a common note, like we just did before. We had G over B. We know that's the C major scale, but we played it from G. Now we're going to go to B flat major 7 or B flat 6. We know that's the B flat major 7, B flat scale, I should say, major scale, and that's going to be. So we're going from to. So look, if I just went from here to here, I change only one note. So I could do something like. And then it goes to E flat major, which again is the same thing. Okay, I think that's about all I can say today for this particular subject. I hope you found this video useful and will give you something to get your teeth into, as we say, and hopefully will help you understand also some of these harmonic terms, things like that. If you look at the repertoire that you've been working on up until now, I'm sure you will find some other examples of this movement of 1 major 7 to 4 major 7, and based on what we've seen today, you will be able to deal with it in a more creative way than perhaps you've been able to do until now. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.